The massive crystal doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open. Susan Miller took a deep breath and walked forward. Her simple blue Earth uniform stood out among the elaborate costumes of the alien representatives. The huge room buzzed, with different languages as 17 alien species talked among themselves. Susan kept her face calm, but her heart beat fast. This meeting would decide Earth's future. "The human representative may approach," announced a tall, thin alien with purple skin. Susan walked to the center of the circular floor. Above her, tiered seating rose in a perfect circle, filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange she could barely tell their front from their back. All of them looked down at her with the same expression, one of mild boredom. "Ambassador Miller of Earth," she said, her voice steady. "I come to present Earth's application for full council membership for the third time." High Counselor Zexatrani, the purple-skinned alien who had called her forward, sighed loudly. His 8 fingers tapped on the crystal table. Yes. We have reviewed your application materials." Again. Susan reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. "If I may, we have updated our technology reports and colony statistics. Earth now has settlements on Mars, Venus, and Europa. Our population has grown to—" "We are aware of your progress," interrupted Ambassador Kraxthar of the Varaxian Empire. The large four-armed alien leaned forward. His red eyes narrowed. "It is not impressive." Several council members laughed. Susan felt her cheeks grow hot, but she kept her voice level. "With respect, Earth meets all the technical requirements for membership as written in the Council Charter." "Technical requirements, perhaps," said Zexatrani. "But the Council must also consider less concrete factors. Your species has barely left its home system. You have only recently developed basic warp technology, and your military capabilities are—" He paused, searching for a word. "Quaint." More laughter filled the chamber. "Earth has much to offer the Council," Susan pressed on. "Our artistic achievements, our scientific creativity, your resources," cut in Kraxthar. "Let us not pretend. Your world is rich in minerals and water. That is what interests certain parties." Susan frowned. "We seek partnership, not exploitation." The High Counselor raised his hand for silence. "The Council has voted. Earth's application for full membership is denied. You may reapply in 20 standard cycles." 20 years? Susan couldn't hide her shock. Last time it was 5. "The Council feels that humans need more time to mature," said Zexatrani with a thin smile. "They're just humans," he added to the council member beside him, not bothering to lower his voice. "Let them develop for another few decades." Susan stood frozen for a moment, then gave a stiff bow. "Earth thanks the Council for its consideration," as she turned to leave. She heard Kraxthar's rumbling voice. "Once the vote passed, I authorized a small resource expedition to the human outer colonies. Nothing major, just a standard extraction operation." Susan paused but didn't turn around, her hands clenched into fists. "You did not inform Earth of this decision," she said. "Observer species are not entitled to notification of standard resource operations," replied Kraxthar. "It's all very legal." Susan walked out without another word. Once outside the grand chamber, she leaned against the wall and took several deep breaths. Then she pulled out her secure communicator. "Miller to Earth Command," she said quietly. "The Council has denied our application, 20-year delay this time, and the Varaxians have launched an extraction operation to our outer colonies." There was a brief silence on the other end. Then a man's voice answered, "Understood, Ambassador. Return to Earth immediately. Your shuttle is ready." The trip back to Earth took 3 days. Susan spent most of it staring at the stars, thinking about the Council's dismissal. Her shuttle landed at the Denver spaceport where a plain black car waited for her. The driver said nothing as he took her deep into the Rocky Mountains, to a facility that officially didn't exist. Admiral Jack Porter met her at the entrance. His weathered face looked grim. "How bad was it?" he asked as they walked through security checkpoints. Worse than last time. They've stopped pretending to take us seriously. Porter nodded. And the Varaxians? Openly admitted they're raiding our outer colonies. Called it a standard extraction operation. They stepped into an elevator that required both their handprints and eye scans. It descended for nearly 2 minutes. Did they suspect anything? Porter asked quietly. Susan shook her head. No. They still think we're struggling with basic warp technology. The mask has held. The elevator doors opened to reveal a massive underground command center. Hundreds of people worked at stations, monitoring screens that showed various parts of space. On the main screen was a live feed of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Varaxian ships hovered over the human colony there. They hit us 6 hours ago, said Porter, pointing to the screen. Took control of the water processing facilities. 17 colonists dead. Susan's face hardened. Have we activated the defense systems? Not yet. The president wants your report first. They entered a conference room where President Olivia Bennett waited with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The president was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Ambassador, she greeted Susan. I've read your preliminary report. Tell me, in your opinion, does the Council have any respect for humanity? Susan didn't hesitate. No, Madam President. They see us as primitive, weak, and naive. A resource to be exploited, nothing more. Bennett nodded slowly. And negotiations? Would be seen as weakness. The Council only respects power. The President looked around the table at her military advisors. Then it seems we have our answer. Admiral Porter, is Plan Omega ready? Porter stood straight. Yes, Madam President. The fleet is at full strength. We've maintained complete secrecy. The Council has no idea what we've built. And the colonies, can we protect them? We have stealth units in position near every human settlement. They can deploy immediately. President Bennett walked to the window that overlooked the command center. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she turned back to the room. For 50 years, we've hidden our true capabilities. We've let the galaxy think we're weak while we built in secret. We've studied their technology, their tactics, their psychology. We've prepared for this day. She paused. I never wanted to reveal ourselves like this, but the Varaxians have given us no choice. She returned to the table and pressed her palm to a scanner. By my authority as President of the United Earth Government, I authorize the activation of Plan Omega. Admiral Porter, you have command of the United Earth Defense Force. Protect our colonies and prepare the fleet for full deployment. Porter saluted. Yes, Madam President. On screens around the room, restricted channels opened. Hidden bases on the Moon, Mars, and deep in the asteroid belt acknowledged the command. In secret shipyards throughout the solar system, thousands of warships powered up their systems. The galaxy thought they knew humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Varaxian ships hung over Europa like giant metal wasps. Their dark hulls reflected the distant sun as they positioned themselves above the human colony. Inside the main habitat dome, Colony Director Karen Wilson watched through reinforced windows as alien shuttles descended toward the surface. All civilians to the inner chambers, she ordered through the colony-wide communication system. This is not a drill. Families rushed to gather essential items before heading to the protected core of the colony. Karen turned to her security chief, a former Marine named Paul Clark. What's our status? She asked. Not good, Paul replied. We have 40 security officers with standard weapons. The Varaxians have at least 500 troops with energy weapons. Karen nodded grimly. And Earth Command? They received our distress call. They said to hold position and protect the civilians. Help is coming. Karen looked skeptical. From where? The nearest military outpost is on Mars, 3 days away at best. Paul shrugged. Those were the orders. Hold position. Protect civilians. Help is coming. Outside, the first Varaxian shuttle landed. 4 armed soldiers in black armor poured out, weapons ready. Their movements were precise and practiced. They had done this many times before on many worlds. Karen pressed the communication button. This is Colony Director Karen Wilson of the United Earth Government. We are a peaceful settlement. State your purpose here. The aliens paused. Then a larger Varaxian stepped forward. His armor was decorated with red symbols, marking him as a commander. "This is Commander Drakvin of the Varaxian Empire," came the reply. "This moon and its resources now belong to the Empire. Surrender control of your water processing facilities immediately." Karen's hands tightened on the console. "This colony is Earth territory. We have legal claim under—" "You have no claim," interrupted the commander. "Your species is not a full council member. By council law, observer species may have their resource claims challenged by full members. We were not notified of— Notification is not required for observer species." The commander's voice was flat. "You have 10 minutes to surrender control of the facilities or we will take them by force." Karen turned to Paul. "Evacuate all personnel from the water facilities. I won't risk lives for machinery." "And if they don't stop there?" Paul asked. Karen's face hardened. "Then we fight, but not until we have to." The Varaxians took control of the water processing plants without resistance. Human technicians were marched out at gunpoint, but the aliens didn't stop. They moved toward the power stations next, then the communication array. "They're stripping the whole colony," Paul said, watching the security feeds. "This isn't a resource expedition. It's an invasion." Karen tried one more time to negotiate. She led a small team to meet with Commander Drakvin at the edge of the main habitat. "You've taken the water facilities," she said. "That should satisfy your resource needs. The rest of the colony is necessary for our survival." The Varaxian commander looked down at her. His red eyes showed no emotion. "We require all resources on this moon. Your colony will be relocated." "Relocated where?" asked Karen. "That is not my concern." The commander turned to leave. One of the human engineers stepped forward. "You can't do this. We built this colony. We have rights." The Varaxian commander moved with shocking speed. His lower right arm grabbed a weapon and fired. The engineer fell, a smoking hole in his chest. Karen and her team froze in horror. "You have no rights," said Drakvin. "You are humans. Nothing more." What happened next was chaos. The Varaxians opened fire. Karen and 2 others managed to escape back to the habitat. 15 others died where they stood. Inside the habitat's command center, Karen's hands shook as she sent an emergency transmission to Earth. "This is Europa colony. The Varaxians have attacked. 17 dead. They're moving on the main habitat. We need immediate assistance." On Earth, the message played in the underground war room. President Bennett's face was like stone as she listened. "Admiral Porter, status of our Europa forces?" Porter touched a screen, bringing up a hidden military base buried deep beneath Europa's ice. "Stealth facility E7 is ready. 200 troops, 20 fighter craft, and defense systems for the colony." "Deploy them," ordered Bennett. "Protect our people." "And the rest of the fleet?" The president was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Prepare for full deployment. If the Varaxians want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." On Europa, the Varaxians were shocked when heavily armed humans suddenly emerged from what had appeared to be a simple ice formation. The alien troops found themselves caught in crossfire as hidden defense turrets activated throughout the colony. Commander Drakvin frantically called his ships in orbit. "We need reinforcements. The humans have hidden defenses." From his command, ship Captain Vorlak responded, "Impossible. Our scans showed no military presence." "The scans were wrong," shouted Drakvin, as an explosion rocked the ground nearby. "They were waiting for us." In the colony's secure bunker, Karen watched the security feeds in amazement as human soldiers in advanced armor pushed the Varaxians back. Their weapons were nothing like the outdated technology Earth showed to the galaxy. "Where did they come from?" she asked as a soldier escorted her to safety. "Ma'am, that's classified," the soldier replied. "But you're safe now." In orbit, the Varaxian ships prepared to bombard the colony from space. Captain Vorlak targeted the main habitat, planning to destroy the entire settlement. "Teach these primitives a lesson," he ordered. But before the Varaxian ships could fire, their sensors detected new energy signatures. Space seemed to bend and twist as 20 sleek warships suddenly appeared around Europa. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the Varaxians didn't know existed. "Captain," said a stunned Varaxian officer, "those are human ships, but they're advanced, more advanced than ours." Before Captain Vorlak could respond, his communication system activated. A human woman in a military uniform appeared on screen. "This is General Sandra Hughes of the United Earth Defense Force. Your unprovoked attack on our colony constitutes an act of war against Earth. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Vorlak laughed. "You're bluffing. Humans don't have this technology, General." Hughes smiled coldly. "Perhaps you should check with your home world before you make assumptions." Vorlak's second communication channel suddenly lit up with urgent messages from Vorax Prime. The blood drained from his face as he saw the images. Hundreds of human warships had appeared in orbit around his home world. More were appearing around every major council planet. It was impossible, yet it was happening. On Earth, President Bennett addressed the Joint Chiefs as reports came in from across the galaxy. "All fleets have successfully deployed," reported Admiral Porter. "Phase 1 of Plan Omega is complete. The galaxy now knows our true strength." Bennett nodded. "And now comes the hard part, forcing the Council to negotiate without starting a galaxy-wide war." Porter looked at the tactical display showing human fleets positioned around every Council homeworld. "With respect, Madam President, I think they'll be very motivated to talk now." In the Galactic Council chamber, panic had replaced the usual calm procedure. Emergency alarms sounded as reports came in from every member world. High Counselor Zextrani looked at the images in disbelief. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They're just humans." Ambassador Susan Miller walked into the chamber, her simple blue uniform now replaced with an admiral's coat bearing the insignia of the United Earth Defense Force. The room fell silent as she approached the center. "The Council will now recognize Earth's application for full membership," she said. "We have some terms to discuss." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. Susan Miller stood in the center, her admiral's uniform gleaming under the bright lights. The 17 council representatives stared down at her in shock. No one moved. No one spoke. "Hi," Councilor Zextrani finally broke the silence. "What is the meaning of this?" His voice shook slightly. "This is diplomacy," Susan replied calmly. "Earth style." The giant screens around the chamber showed images from across the galaxy. Human warships orbited every council homeworld. The ships were sleek, advanced, and clearly powerful. Each fleet was larger than the entire military force of the world. It surrounded. "Impossible," whispered Ambassador Crackstar. "Your species was struggling with basic warp technology. Our intelligence reports were exactly what we wanted you to see," Susan interrupted. "For 50 years, Earth has shown the galaxy outdated ships and technology while building our real fleet in secret." Crackstar's 4 hands gripped the edge of his seat. "But our scans, our spies, all saw what we wanted them to see." Susan walked to the central console and inserted a data chip. A new image appeared on the main screen, a massive underground facility beneath the surface of Earth's moon. It stretched for hundreds of miles. Thousands of ships were visible in the enormous hidden shipyards. While you dismissed us as primitives, we studied you. We learned your technologies, your tactics, your weaknesses. We built a fleet designed to counter every advantage you thought you had. The council members looked at each other in growing panic. Zextrani tried to maintain his dignity. "This is an outrage, an act of war against the council." Susan's eyes flashed with anger. "No, the act of war was the Varaxian attack on our Europa colony. 17 dead humans, remember?" Crackstar shifted uncomfortably. "A simple resource operation. Nothing unusual. Let me show you something else." Susan changed the display to show footage from Europa. The images showed Varaxian troops firing on unarmed humans who were trying to negotiate. This is what the mighty Varaxian Empire calls a resource operation. Murder. The council chamber erupted into shouted arguments. Some demanded military action. Others called for immediate negotiations. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Zexatrani banged his ceremonial staff on the floor. Order! We must have order! When the room quieted, he turned to Susan. Admiral Miller, what does Earth want? Susan smiled thinly. Now you're asking the right question. Earth wants 3 things. First, full council membership with equal rights to any other species. Second, reparations for the attack on Europa. Third, a complete restructuring of how the council treats non-member worlds. Impossible, shouted several representatives at once. Look at your screens again, Susan said quietly. Tell me what's impossible now. On the orbiting flagship above, the council homeworld, Admiral Jack Porter watched the council session through a secure feed. Beside him stood President Bennett, who had traveled secretly to oversee the operation personally. They're scared, Porter observed. Good. Bennett shook her head. Fear isn't enough. We need respect, not terror. Otherwise, this ends in war. They started this, Porter reminded her. And we'll finish it, Bennett agreed, but not with more bloodshed if we can avoid it. The ship's commander approached them. Madam President, we're receiving requests for communication from 12 different council species. They all want to negotiate separately. Bennett smiled. They're trying to divide us, decline all requests. They negotiate with all of Earth or none of it. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged on. Some members argued for immediate surrender to human demands. Others insisted on fighting back. Kraxthar pounded his fists on the table. The Voraxian Empire will never bow to human demands. We should strike now, with everything we have. An older council member from a species known as the Meltorians raised her hand. And then what? Look at their positions. Look at their numbers. They could destroy our homeworlds before our fleets even arrived. They're bluffing, Kraxthar insisted. No species could build a fleet that size in secret. Susan laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. The same way no primitive human could possibly become an admiral. Your arrogance blinded you. It still blinds you. She turned to address the entire council. While you were watching our public space program struggle with outdated ships, our real fleet was growing in hidden bases throughout our system. Every time your spies reported on our primitive technology, we knew exactly what information they were sending back. Zexatrani leaned forward. How? How did you manage this deception? By using your prejudice against you, Susan replied. You saw what you expected to see, a young, struggling species. You never questioned it because it matched your assumptions. The council members looked at each other uncomfortably. Their certainty was crumbling. You have 1 hour to vote on our demands, Susan said. After that, Earth will take appropriate action. She left the chamber without another word. The moment the doors closed behind her, the council erupted into panicked debate. On the flagship, Susan joined President Bennett and Admiral Porter in the command center. How did they take it? Bennett asked. Exactly as expected, Susan replied. Shock, denial, anger, and now they're moving toward bargaining. Porter checked the tactical display. All fleets remain in position. No council world has launched any military response yet. They won't, Susan said confidently. Their militaries are designed to bully weaker species, not fight equals. They have no experience with a fair fight. Bennett looked troubled. And, if they call our bluff? Susan and Porter exchanged glances. It's not a bluff, Madam President, Porter said quietly. If they force our hand, we can and will defend ourselves. But millions would die, Bennett replied, on both sides. Which is why they'll choose negotiation, Susan assured her. They've survived this long by being practical. When faced with superior force, they adapt. As the hour deadline approached, the council voted. The decision was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 15 votes to accept Earth's demands, 2 against. High Counselor Zexatrani himself delivered the news to Susan. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by cautious respect. The Council accepts Earth's terms for negotiation, he said formally. We request a ceasefire while details are discussed. Susan nodded. Granted. Earth's diplomatic team will arrive tomorrow to begin the process. As Zexatrani turned to leave, he paused. How long? He asked. How long have you been planning this? Susan smiled. Since the first time you dismissed us as just humans. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The impossible had happened. A young species had outmaneuvered the ancient council. The balance of power had shifted overnight. On colony worlds and observer planets, oppressed species watched in wonder and hope as the mighty council bowed to human demands. If the humans could do it, perhaps they could too. In the heart of his palace on Vorax Prime, Emperor Kravax raged at his military advisors. How did we not see this coming? How did they hide an entire fleet? His chief intelligence officer could only shake his head. They used our expectations against us, Your Majesty. We saw weakness because we wanted to see weakness. The Emperor turned to stare out at the hundreds of human ships orbiting his world. A mistake, he said quietly, that we will not make again. The next 3 days were filled with tense negotiations. Earth's diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Liz Daniels, met with the Council in sessions that lasted well into the night. Admiral Susan Miller and President Bennett watched from the flagship, ready to step in if needed. They're stalling, Susan said as she reviewed the latest reports, especially the Varaxians. President Bennett nodded. They're hoping we'll get tired, or that our fleet can't maintain position indefinitely. Little do they know, Susan said, with a small smile. On the 4th day, Ambassador Daniels entered the council chamber with a new approach. She was a tall woman with dark skin and a quiet, intense manner that commanded attention. Enough delays, she announced to the assembled council. Earth has prepared a complete treaty. You have 6 hours to review and sign it, or we walk away from negotiations. Kraxthar of the Varaxian Empire rose from his seat. This is outrageous. Such important matters cannot be rushed. 3 days is not rushing, Daniels replied calmly. You've had time to consult your governments. Now you must decide. High Counselor Zextrani looked nervous. What happens if we need more time? Daniels placed a datapad on the central table. Then Earth will implement its own solution without Council input. The implied threat hung in the air. The Council representatives quickly gathered around to read the treaty terms. First, Earth would be granted full Council membership with all the rights and privileges that entailed. Second, the Varaxian Empire would pay reparations for the Europa attack and withdraw from all human territories. Third, and most radical, all observer species would have their status upgraded. No longer would the Council be allowed to exploit non-member worlds. This is revolution, not negotiation, Kraxthar shouted. You seek to overturn the entire galactic order. A galactic order built on exploitation, Daniels countered. One that has served the original 17 Council races, while keeping everyone else down. That ends today. The Meltorian representative, Solana, studied the treaty carefully. Many of these reforms have been proposed before by my people and others. They were always blocked by certain interests. She glanced meaningfully at Kraxthar. The difference, Daniel said, is that now they have Earth's fleet behind them. Solana nodded slowly. I believe my government will support these terms. One by one, other representatives began to indicate their support. The Varaxians and their closest allies remained opposed, but they were increasingly isolated. On the flagship, President Bennett received updates from Daniels. It's working, she told Susan and Porter. The coalition is fracturing. The moderates are breaking away from the hardliners. Porter checked the tactical display. The Varaxian military is on the move, not attacking but repositioning. Show me, Bennett said. The display zoomed in on Varaxian territory. Their ships were pulling back from border areas, consolidating around their core worlds. They're preparing for the possibility of war, Susan observed. But they're also showing us they're not planning to strike first. A message, Bennett agreed. They want us to know they're still strong but not aggressive. Should we respond? Porter asked. Bennett thought for a moment. Yes, pull our ships back slightly from their homeworld. Give them room to breathe, but keep enough presence to maintain pressure. Back in the council chamber, the vote was called. The treaty passed by a margin of 13-4. The Varaxians and their closest allies refused to sign, But with the majority of the council backing the treaty, their opposition was largely symbolic. Zexatrani signed the document with a flourish of his pen, officially recognizing Earth as a full council member. He looked at Daniels with new respect. "You have changed the galaxy in a single week, Ambassador. I hope we all live to see if it was for the better." Daniels met his gaze steadily. Change was coming either way, Counselor. The old system was unsustainable. As news of the treaty spread, celebrations erupted on worlds that had been under council exploitation for generations. Species that had been denied membership suddenly found themselves elevated to new status. Trade agreements that had favored the original council races were opened for renegotiation. Not everyone was celebrating. On Vorax Prime, Emperor Kravax refused to ratify the treaty. He summoned his military leaders to the Imperial Palace for an emergency meeting. "We will not surrender to human demands," he declared. "The Voraxian Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We will not be dictated to by primitives who only discovered space travel in the last century." Fleet Admiral Vorax, his most experienced military leader, looked troubled. "With respect, Your Majesty, we cannot win a direct confrontation with the human fleet. Their technology is surprising." "We don't need to win immediately," the Emperor replied. "We need only survive. The humans cannot maintain their fleet deployments forever. They will grow tired, or their alliance will fracture. Then we strike." On Earth's flagship, intelligence officers intercepted communications from Vorax Prime. "The Emperor is planning for a long game," Susan reported to President Bennett. "He thinks we can't maintain our deployment indefinitely." Bennett smiled. "He still doesn't understand what he's dealing with, does he?" "No," Susan agreed. "He thinks our fleet mobilization is a temporary measure, that we've stretched ourselves thin to cover the galaxy." Porter joined them, bringing fresh tactical reports. "The Voraxians are reaching out to other holdouts, trying to form a counter-alliance. Nothing serious yet, but something to watch." Bennett nodded. "As expected. Keep monitoring, but don't interfere unless they make a hostile move." She turned to look out at the stars. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, the withdrawal. The next day, Earth did something no one expected. They began pulling their fleets back, not all ships, and not from all locations, but enough that the message was clear. Earth was not interested in permanent military occupation. In the council chamber, Ambassador Daniels explained the move. "Earth has achieved its diplomatic goals. We see no need to maintain our full military presence now that the treaty is signed. We are leaving observation forces only as a guarantee of compliance." The council representatives were visibly relieved. Many had feared Earth planned to replace the old power structure with their own military rule. Kraxthar watched suspiciously. "They must be reaching the limits of their deployment capability," he muttered to his aide. "No fleet can maintain such widespread operations indefinitely." From her new seat as Earth's official council representative, Susan Miller overheard the comment and smiled to herself. The Voraxians still didn't understand. Earth's fleet wasn't stretched thin. What the galaxy had seen was only a small fraction of humanity's true military strength. As the Earth ships departed from council space, they left behind something more powerful than warships: hope. For the first time, the dominated species of the galaxy saw that the old powers could be challenged. The balance had shifted and nothing would be the same again. 1 year had passed since the day human warships appeared around every council world. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council chamber looked different now. The Grand Room had been redesigned, with all seats arranged in a perfect circle. No species sat higher than another. The original 17 council races had been joined by 12 new members, including several that had been observer species just a year before. Earth's official representative, Ambassador Liz Daniels, took her seat as the council session began. She nodded to Solana, the Meltorian representative who had become a close ally during the past year. "The first year is always the hardest," Solana said quietly. "You have done well." "We all have," Daniels replied. High Counselor Zexatrani, who had kept his position in the new council by embracing reform, called the session to order. The main topic was trade routes through formerly restricted space. Under the old system, Prime, trade lanes had been controlled by the original council races. Now they were open to all. As the discussion continued, Daniels noted the empty Voraxian seat. The Empire had withdrawn from the council 6 months ago, refusing to accept the new order. They had formed a separate alliance with 3 other former council races, creating what they called the Sovereign Coalition. So far, the coalition had been quiet, focusing on building their internal strength rather than causing trouble. Earth and the council watched them closely, but allowed them their space. After the session ended, Daniels met with Admiral Porter in Earth's new embassy on the council homeworld. The embassy was a striking building of glass and steel, designed to showcase human architecture. "How are things back home?" she asked. Porter smiled. "Good. President Bennett's approval ratings are at an all-time high. The Europa colony has been fully rebuilt. The Voraxian reparations paid for that and more. And the fleet? Stronger than ever. The shipyards on Luna and Mars are working at full capacity. The new base in the Kuiper Belt will be operational next month." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Still preparing for war?" "Still preparing for whatever comes," Porter corrected. "Peace through strength, Ambassador. That's how we got here." "Speaking of strength," Daniels said, "our intelligence reports the Voraxians are building up their fleet. Nothing that could challenge us directly, but concerning." Porter nodded. "We're aware. They're focusing on smaller, faster ships, probably planning for hit-and-run tactics rather than direct confrontation. Will they try something?" "Eventually," Porter said. "Their culture can't accept defeat. But they're being smart, taking their time, looking for weaknesses." "And will they find any?" Porter smiled. "No, but they'll keep looking." On Vorax Prime, Emperor Kravax received the latest intelligence on human activities. His spies had spread throughout human space, watching and reporting. What they found was troubling. "They're not slowing down," reported his chief intelligence officer. "Their military production continues to increase. New shipyards, new designs, new technologies. A year of peace and still they build weapons," the Emperor mused. "Perhaps they understand the galaxy better than I thought." "There's more," said the officer. "They're sharing technology with their allies. Not weapons, but medical advancements. Clean energy systems, agricultural methods. They're buying loyalty." The Emperor walked to the window of his palace. In the distance, he could see the massive shipyards where his own fleet was being rebuilt. "How long until we can challenge them?" he asked. "Directly? Never, Your Majesty. Their head start is too great. But we have other strategies in development, ways to pressure them, to find their limits." "Proceed," the Emperor ordered. "But cautiously. We must be patient." On Earth, President Bennett addressed the United Earth government in a special session. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human settlement, from Earth to the outer colonies. "1 year ago we revealed ourselves to the galaxy," she said. "We showed that humanity would not be dismissed or exploited. We took our rightful place among the stars." The hall erupted in applause. "But our work is not done," Bennett continued when the noise died down. "We have changed the rules, but the game continues. The Voraxians and their allies still dream of returning to the old ways. Other threats may emerge. We must remain vigilant." She gestured to a group of non-human visitors in special seats. They were representatives from species that had allied with Earth during the past year. "Look around you. See the friends we have made, the partnerships we have built. This is the true strength of humanity, not just our ships and weapons, but our ability to build bridges where others built walls." On Europa, Colony Director Karen Wilson watched the president's speech on a large screen in the colony's main plaza. The settlement had been rebuilt, larger, and stronger than before. Where once there had been only simple domes, now a thriving city spread across the moon's surface. Near her stood Paul Clark, her former security chief, now mayor of the colony's 2nd district. "Hard to believe it's been a year," he said. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to see Varaxian ships overhead. Karen nodded. The universe changed right over our heads. Sometimes I wonder if it was all worth it. The 17 who died? Yes. Paul was quiet for a moment. I think about them too, but look what came from it. A new council, new rights for dozens of species, a galaxy that's a little more fair than it was before. On the flagship of Earth's home fleet, Admiral Susan Miller prepared to hand over command to her successor. After a year overseeing Earth's new role in galactic politics, she was retiring. Her replacement, Admiral John Rivera, joined her on the observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly, beautiful and blue. Any advice for your replacement? Rivera asked. Susan smiled. Remember why we built the fleet in the first place. Not to rule, not to conquer, but to protect. To ensure that humans would never be dismissed as just humans again. And if the Varaxians or someone else tests us, then you show them exactly why that would be a mistake, Susan said firmly. But always leave room for peace. Always give them a way back to the table. Across the galaxy, in countless worlds that had once lived under council exploitation, beings of all shapes and sizes looked up at the stars with new hope. The arrival of human ships had changed everything. The old powers had been forced to make room for new voices, new ideas. In schools and homes, they told the story of how a young species had outsmarted the ancient council, how humans had hidden their true strength, waiting for the right moment, how they had revealed their power, not to conquer, but to create a more just galaxy. They're just humans, the council had said. They never made that mistake again.